Welcome to the Healthy Over 50 podcast. Today's episode is about resilience, but not the kind we post about on social media, the real kind, the kind that gets tested when life interrupts everything. My guest today is Damon, a coach who has lived through something that changes a person forever. That is brain surgery, to remove a tumor. When your brain, the very organ that governs your thoughts, your identity, your movement, your capacity, becomes the center of a medical crisis, it forces a reckoning. Since that experience, Damon has transformed not only his lifestyle, but also his coaching philosophy. He now focuses deeply on well-being, burnout prevention, sustainable performance, and nervous regulation. And he practices the Wim Hof Method daily using breathwork, cold exposure, and mindset training, not as a trend, but as a tool for resilience and clarity. So today we're going to explore what happens when high performance meets mortality, how health scares shift priorities, the philosophy of burnout, and the role of breath and nervous system regulation, and what it truly means to live well, not just achieve more. Damon, welcome to the Healthy Over 50 podcast. Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. I've just had my cold plunge, so I'm all good. But thanks for having me on.
That's brilliant. I'm super excited about the conversation. So I'm just going to jump right in.
Mm.
Anybody who's just starting listening to this is wondering, can you take us back to the moment you found out about the tumor? What was going on through your mind, not just physically, but everything, emotionally, like psychologically, like everything?
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. I found out in quite a strange kind of way, and essentially, I've been having these memory lapses, and they're always a couple of days after after drinking or a day after drinking, and they were only temporary memories. So it wasn't like who am I? It was more about where was I last night? So I just thought I'm getting old, I'm getting a bit stressed, and and it was linked to the drinking a bit of beer fear and kind of drinking too much. So um after a while it was happening more and more, and I was trying to get into the NHS, and my symptoms were really vague and mild, so they didn't really know what to do with me. So my mum and dad said, let's go and see a neurologist, see him privately. And he said, well, let's do a few tests. It doesn't sound too kind of outrageous, but let's do some tests to see what's kind of going on. Now, he said, let's do an MRI, and then let's do an EEG to kind of look at the electrical kind of brainwaves kind of going on. And I just assumed, I didn't even think, I was like, I didn't question it, but I didn't really think the MRI was going to show anything up because I wasn't even thinking about brain tumors or anything like that. I just thought the EEG, the electrical brainwave thing, will show something up that there's maybe just maybe I might have, because he mentioned I might have a mild form of epilepsy called transient epileptic amnesia. And I thought, oh, that sounds quite friendly. Yeah. So I was like, I was waiting on that. Um, I then went to I booked myself into, my friend recommended this place to go and have an MRI that kind of does them slightly cheaper. And he used it, and I was like, okay, well, fine, I'll trust that. And it was right by Waterloo Station, just in central London. So I went up one evening at the beginning of December 2019. Dad came with me, so I must have been a little bit nervous, I guess, thinking about it, looking back. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked him to come with me. And I had the scan, finish the scan, and the radiologist comes up to me and hands me an envelope with a CD and a letter in it. And he said, don't open the letter, don't open the CD, just take this to the hospital now, and please go now. And that's at the point when I'm like, well, what do you mean go now? What, I live in Guildford. That's kind of a 40-minute train ride. Can I? He's like, okay, that's fine, that's fine. But I was just, he could have scared the hell out of me. I know he didn't mean to, but he was also, as a radiographer or a radiologist, he wasn't qualified to actually give me the official diagnosis. So he'd done a scan, he'd seen a big lump there. and just knew he had to get me into the system somehow. So he was trying to kind of get me there, but it scared the hell out of me. I was like, "Oh, what do I do now?" Okay, so I didn't go. In fact, no, we did go to the Royal Surrey that night, and there was no one there. And they said, "Well, I could have a look at the scan, but I'm not a trained neurologist, so I don't know how to interpret it." And so I went back to the neurologist a couple of days later. I dropped the CD into him as soon as I could, and then saw him on the Wednesday evening. And he said, "Yeah, I can could I give you the news. You have a brain tumor." He said, "But what we don't know, because the type of scan you had, you only had part of it." And essentially saying, if you'd have had it, I was meant to do was have a scan and have contrast injected into me kind of part way through. And maybe I either forgot that bit or didn't do it because it was probably too much kind of going on. So he booked me in right then. This was kind of 6 in the evening on the Wednesday after having had the initial scan on the Monday. And I went to have a scan straight away, just a 10-minute one, because usually they're about 45 minutes, but with the contrast kind of being injected. And I remember the guy who kind of hooking me up to kind of inject the contrast. He said, "Are you okay?" And I could have just looked at him and went, "I've just been diagnosed with a brain tumor." No, no, I'm not fucking okay. Um, so, but I had that secondary scan, and thankfully booked me in to see him the next day, a Thursday at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., whatever time it was. And I go back, and he's smiling. Um, and so it says, "Look, as you know, it is serious. You are on," and I was put on the night before. I was put on anti-seizure medication straight away, and all this was happening. And it was all pretty quick and pretty like, oh, absolutely petrified. But when I went back on a Thursday, he said, "Well, what we can tell from the scan is it's not aggressive. So looking at where it is and the way the shape of it and everything, it looks like a grade 2 tumor." What we'd call in the old days a benign tumor, but actually these days benign sounds quite friendly, so they've kind of moved away of calling it benign. So said essentially, it looks like you have a form of grade 2 tumor, and we'll know a bit more when we do the op. If that's what you want to do, the choice is yours now. I've actually booked you in to see a surgeon on Monday morning, and he'll give the option of what you want to do, and he'll talk you through. He's a friend of mine. He's really nice, and he was right. He was a really nice guy, and still got a lot of admiration for Simon Stapleton, my surgeon from St George's. And yeah, so that was it. I went within 2 or 3 days. I went from kind of knowing I've got a tumor, then thinking my whole world's falling apart, then having a bit more reassurance of, okay, there's time on our side here. It's not aggressive. And then surgery is to remove as much as possible, because what they could see is that once you get to grade 2, so tumors are kind of graded 1 to 4 now, a little bit like other cancers, essentially. Grade 1 typically means that it's very clear. They can go in, they operate, they can see just where once the brain starts, where the tumor starts, remove everything, and off you go out the door. Once you get to grade 2, it's a bit more fuzzy. It's really hard to define where one starts and one begins. So an operation is to try and remove as much as they can, as safely as possible. Um, and then put you on what is, I don't know whether it's still called this, but it's called a watch and wait system. And you have scans every kind of 6 months or whatever they deem kind of appropriate. And so I started 2020, the year of COVID that we all remember, kind of half petrified, but also half kind of like, I can do something with this. It's not the, no one was saying you've got 6 months to live. They were saying, no, we can work with this. But what we do know is that at some point these tumors start to grow. Um, so we're going to operate to remove as much as possible, and then that reduces the chances of, if there's less there to go wrong, then there's less chance. Ultimately, I think that was the idea behind why they advised for surgery. Um, so yeah, that's how 2020 started.
Oh my God. So there is a lot there to kind of unpack. I mean, what I can't help noticing that on a Monday you discover that there was something wrong,
Mm.
And on a Monday, the following week, you were told like you could get possibly brain surgery. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It's like, were you even able to sleep or to focus? Did you take time off work? Like, how did you manage all the stress?
Well, I was working for and I still am. I was working for myself. I was running a recruitment business at the time. It was just me and another guy. So I think I was doing very little. As soon as I had that initial scan of it's a tumor of some sort, then I might have made a few calls here and there, but not really much. I think I was just sleeping wise. I can't really remember. What I can remember is one night, maybe it's while we were still waiting for the results. I remember just having a couple of glasses of wine, and I haven't. Well, I don't drink at the moment. Well, in fact, I did have a glass of wine last weekend, but for a year I didn't drink. And then I'm trying to change my habits ultimately and just really reduce things down. Uh, but at the time. I was also conscious to not drink too much, but I just thought I kind of need to somehow relax. And
Yeah,
the go fault kind of mechanism of me at the time, I was probably drinking quite a bit at the time, and well, I need a glass of wine. That's going to help me relax. And
yeah,
to be fair, in that moment, after two glasses of wine, I did kind of. I don't know whether relax is the right word, but something could have happened and and then I start kind of going through the narrative and trying to talk myself into, okay, I've got this, I can do this.
wow,
But it's, there's one thing talking it and there's another thing doing it. So uh, I was sleeping okay. One thing I do remember is one of the mornings that I was just lying on my bed. I'd kind of got up and then got back into bed. Could have just lying on my bed, could have clothed. And mum came in and got onto bed with me and just kind of gave me a cuddle. And I was 38 or 39 at the time. I can't remember which one. And you're a grown man and lying on your bed, and your mum's just come to kind of come give you a cuddle because you're both absolutely fucking petrified because you don't know what the results are yet. You know, there's a tumor and you don't know what the future holds. And so that moment stuck in my mind for, yeah, I felt like a little child again. Apart from also wanting to try and protect my mum from what was going on, but not knowing how to because I couldn't protect myself at the time. Um,
wow. But it sounds like you have a good family, like you're surrounded. So that's good.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when something like that happens, is that affecting your kind of your sense of identity? Because we all have ways we see ourselves or we like to see ourselves.
Um, Ooh, yes, it did, and it certainly has. But at that time, leading up until, because basically we have beginning of December diagnosis, and then seeing the kind of surgeon, and then being booked in for surgery the beginning of February. So I then had kind of a month and a half. So in that month and a half, I guess I wouldn't. I wouldn't really be able to kind of comment on how it affected my identity because I don't really remember. I don't really know. I remember what happens, but that wasn't really on my mind, I guess. But once I'd had surgery, that was when I started to kind of, I guess, get my head around things a little bit more and try and be kind of almost use it as a kind of thing of like, right, I can get stronger through this. I didn't quite know how, but that's what I was kind of. I could see a glimmer of hope somewhere in there.
Wow, and that's really like that's pure resilience. Straight away, you started having that. So I just wonder because we met when we were doing the leadership
IPEC.
lifetime coaching, life coaching with IPAC. When
Mm.
we met, how long ago did you? That was really recent, the surgery, if I remember.
Yeah, so module one was July
Yeah.
2020. I'd had surgery February 2020. So we're kind
Wow.
of 4 or 5 months after. Yeah, so I was still getting my head around things and still there was the big question that I hadn't really answered and got my head around, which I guess part of my story, which I guess we'll go through today. We'll dive into it, but I didn't know how to deal with. I guess I'd go in for these scans every 6 months and feel pretty powerless and just kind of cross my fingers, think, oh God, I just hope it's withered away and kind of and they can wither away, but I remember the surgeon saying to me something as he came round when I was in the hospital for a few days just after surgery, and he said they just kind of sit up there and they fester. And I, thinking back, I heard him say wither. He didn't say wither, but he said fester. But I wanted to hear wither. So in my mind, I was kind of almost talking myself into this will just kind of disappear. And then I remember having a kind of conversation with him and saying, no, they don't disappear. So it was a whole kind of learning experience of like, oh right, so this is here for life then. And at some point, the trend had been. I don't believe I get why they kind of give you some advice on this, but the trend had been typically if it's low grade, it starts growing like that, and then at some point it'll try and grow a bit quicker. That certainly has happened in the past, but it's not happening with me now, and I don't. I think if you don't change anything about your life whatsoever, and you just have surgery, then the chances are it might go that way if we're being kind of completely honest, because but you need to um, if you don't understand or you don't kind of believe that you have control over your health, and just something as simple as breath work or even just belief, power of
Mhm.
belief, can actually affect what your state of your body's or your ability to kind of influence your body and control your health. If you don't believe that I'll do anything, then it will go the way the kind of prognosis, so to speak, is saying. So when we were in IPEC at the module one, I was still trying to kind of get my head round. I think I'm going to be okay, but what if it grows? And I didn't really know how to kind of answer that. And but I knew that being doing something like IPEC and the kind of the coaching was helping me get some tools and kind of there was a I really love the fact that the course had a bit of a spiritual element to it, what the program does, and these energy levels we talk about, and that it just felt like if you look at level 7, the level of creation, it's like yeah, I need some of that. I need some level of kind of nothing's real and you just create the world as you choose. I was like, yeah, does that apply to health? Because I hope it does, because that's what I
So,
need.
so the fact that you decided to become a coach, was that related to your health scare, or was that always in the works?
I think I'd have maybe got there eventually. I mean, I've been in recruitment since I'd kind of left uni pretty much, and always in kind of construction and architectural recruitment, and then running my own business and then with a business partner. And I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed because it had taken me to Dubai and Hong Kong, and then, you get to run your own business. And I enjoyed the people aspect of it, but I didn't enjoy the rat race of kind of being in recruitment and having to kind of, oh, I've got to get the CV over there quickly before someone else does that whole, which depending on the type of recruitment, if you're doing kind of mid-level stuff, that happens a lot because, you never quite know what the other recruiter, whether he or she is acting with integrity and has got permission to send the CV or not. And it
Yeah.
depends on how good your relationships are with companies. So, I was, yeah, long way of saying I was thinking about something else, but I just didn't know what and didn't know how the hell do I do that? And then when the tumor came along and found IPEC, I was like, this feels like and I went into it with the frame of mind of like, well, this will just help me anyway in life, and it'll be because I think I was looking at doing an MBA at one point. I thought maybe that would give me some skills to help me kind of develop a business of some sort. But actually, IPEC did exactly the same. It's or gave me what I needed. It gave me kind of more life skills, as well as ability to kind of coach other people because I was kind of using it to kind of coach myself for a while. And those one-to-one peer sessions that we'd have training, I was using them, people like Christine, and
Yeah.
um, to yeah sort my life out really. So she did very well, like a fresh grad in having to kind of coach me, and yeah, that was so I. I was kind of sitting on the fence because I knew with that program that I could stay in recruitment and still maybe I could somehow transition into it and kind of be a bit of a chicken and sit on the fence and kind of hedge my bets and see how it went. So yeah, it was a bit of a plan, and I didn't think I'd eventually would have got there, but the tumor helped speed things up. Um,
Wow. So, okay. So now you now focus on well-being and burnout. Do you believe chronic stress played any type of role in your health crisis or
100%. Yeah, I think chronic stress, and I mean, stress is everywhere these days. So it's environmental, it's social, there's the chemical stress from eating processed foods and kind of drinking alcohol, and then there's the mental and emotional stress that we could have put on ourselves, or we feel that other people put on us, or society puts on us, but actually we're kind of putting, or I was putting on myself. Then there's lifestyles we lead. If I look at my kind of drinking a lot, doing exercise, and you're pushing yourself between two extremes. And then when I lived in Hong Kong at like in my early 30s, I could have discovered cocaine. So I'd be pushing myself between drinking a shitload, doing loads of coke, and then going out hiking as well. And if it's just your body can only deal with that for kind of so long. And I certainly don't think, I wasn't doing enough to kind of, I don't think things like cocaine cause brain tumors, certainly not, but the whole lifestyle and just the diminishing of your immune system, these are all playing kind of factors into it. And my diet has always been okay, but I binge on kind of crap quite a bit as well, probably back in the day. So I'd have a nice meal one night and then have a complete crap meal the next night. So I think over time these things kind of build up, but I did hold on to, if I look at my 20s and my early 30s and even late 30s, I've kept stuff in a lot. I wouldn't have a voice and I'd kind of just keep my head down, and I'd probably be known as Mr. Nice because I wouldn't really have any arguments with people, and I'd just hold it in. And I'd be really pissed off sometimes, absolutely fuming, but I wouldn't let anyone know that. I'd keep it all in. Um,
wow.
so I think that's um, just talking to a friend of mine recently who has a brain tumor as well, and the kind of not being able to express yourself or find your voice or keep things inside seems to be a little bit of a theme. And
You know what? This is actually extremely interesting because I have a friend as well. He's in France and he's I think he's late 50s or early 60s. And last year he discovered he had a tumor because he was not making any sense when he was speaking. Anyway,
mm,
he had his surgery like a month and a half ago. And he told me something. He said that the doctor told him that there is a correlation. It seems like with having, he's been very sad and frustrated with his mom, who has been a horrible person to him all his life. And he was fuming inside. He had a lot of anger and sadness, but it was in his head like a big knot.
mm.
And it seems like I can hear the same, like there's a pattern there maybe. Wow. So how do you define burnout today? Like,
When you're going through it, it's quite subtle because we've got really good at tolerating stress, and we could have lived in a society where it's like stress is almost a kind of good thing. If you're not stressed, then you're not working hard, are you? And it's like, oh no, that's absolute load of bollocks. It's you can have, even if you aren't doing your dream job, and life can be hard, life can be challenging, but you don't have to be kind of completely stressed, and you don't have to work, 50 hours every day under the sun to be successful. I mean, it depends what you mean by success, but we do live in that kind of culture of you've got to work hard. Well, actually, working smarter is more productive and more effective and more creative. So we don't have to kind of, but it's like there's this pressure that we put on ourselves but we are putting on ourselves. There is some from society, of course, and some from companies, and but um, we also do have the choice to kind of go no. It's nice when you kind of see parents come back from maternity leave, or if they've been through something kind of particularly different, then. they do change things. And if someone uh, has been off work for an illness and then they come back, then they're like, no, I need to look after myself now, and that's when the changes will make. But generally, in the society we live in, we push ourselves, and but we've also got really good at tolerating stress because it's low level stress. But it's constant, which is the same thing as another word of saying that you used at the beginning is chronic stress. And we can deal with stress like our ancient ancestors, caveman and cavewoman, dealt with stress because it would be stress of a tiger and you'd see the tiger, then you'd run away because the adrenaline would give you the energy to run away. It would be the stress of the cold. So you wouldn't go out for too long, you'd go out for long enough. The stress of trying to find food and not having enough food and going hunting for it. Um, but it was limited. And then we'd relax and kind of sigh. That's where the sigh comes from. It's kind of where that's where you trigger your kind of parasympathetic nervous system. But
Yeah.
stress is everywhere these days. It's psychological stress. It's mental, emotional, physical, chemical, everywhere. It's God, that sounds really doom and gloom when I say that, doesn't it? But we can do so much about it. That's the thing. Stress is everywhere, and it is with when our bodies go into stress response, our immune system shuts down because it says you need energy to run away from that tiger. So temporarily, because you are just running away from a tiger, because that's what our bodies have learned over kind of the ages and ages, we're going to turn your immune system off because it takes so much energy. And do you need energy to run away from a tiger, or do you need your immune system going? Because if the tiger gets you, you're screwed. And so
Mm.
let's shut it off for now. And that worked. It doesn't work when it's your boss or the mortgage or the thought of the uh, the Oompa Loompa over in the White House kind of causing chaos around the world.
Mm.
It doesn't. These stresses are kind of psychological and mental and emotional, and so we need to find different ways of consciously choosing how much energy we get to give to things, and also have a process of like through that awareness, going right. I'm stressed. I need to. Here's my process. Here's what I do.
Yeah.
Um, just going to start by breathing calmly for a little bit. I'm going to walk away
Yeah.
and then they're going to come back to the stressful situation because if we're in stress all the time, then ultimately, when our bodies are in homeostasis, they do everything they need. They produce natural killer cells that can fight cancer and all these other diseases. We release endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin, all these things that go around your body, the anabolic hormones that you and I kind of know about from our kind of coach
Mm.
training that go around your body to kind of keep it clean, optimize it, fine tune, and make you, in the words of Wim Hof, happier, healthier, and stronger.
Yeah.
And we don't get those when we're in stress response, or we do get them if we're in low dose intermittent acute stress, the kind of that kind of hormetic stress. But chronic stress, no, the body's just going. It's almost like when the if our bodies are like a city, and if the waste or kind of refuge kind of thing shuts down, then the streets clog up, and the streets are our veins and our arteries, So that's what stress does to our bodies, and it clogs up, and it stops being able to kind of deal with all the kind of toxins that we get every day that usually it will deal with, and keep us kind of healthy. And so, yeah, stress is at the heart of everything, I think. And I think there's enough great people out there who with a lot more educated and scientific brains than mine to kind of tell you that, yeah, stress is the root of all disease, essentially, particularly chronic stress. But it shows up in our bodies in different places, doesn't it? We hold stress in certain places. Sometimes it's our shoulders. When I was really young, I used to hold it in my stomach. I'd have that feeling of being a bit sick, but as I got older, I seemed to kind of hold it in my head more, which is where Terry the tumor is. So it's does make me aware of, well, I send my head a lot of love these days, quite simply, and that's just kind of when I do my breath work in the morning, it's like, yeah, feel it tingling and send some love up there. Because I believe in the power of the mind. Placebos work for a reason because your body thinks you're getting a drug, you're not. So it says, well, it taps into your internal medicine cabinet and provides all this healing. When you're getting nothing. If that's not a miracle, then wow, I don't know what is. That's awesome. That shows how amazing our bodies are just through the power of thought.
Yeah, totally. I think there's a lot that you've shared. A few things that I think the first thing is awareness. Many people realize that they are stressed when they are extremely stressed, and it starts to affect them physically.
Mm,
And actually, one of my clients is like a VP, and I was telling her, I think you're stressed. I think you need to book a vacation. You need to slow down. And I could see the reaction was almost aggressive. Like she wouldn't hear it because she was like, go, 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 go. She needs to keep on going.
mm,
And she needed like a few days. And then the next call, she was like, no, you're right, you're right. I'm speaking with my husband over the weekend. We're gonna book a holiday. And I say, yeah. And once you book the holiday, once you come back from the holiday, you book another holiday. And then we had a discussion, and I was like, you're not gonna change your job, but you have to remember. And from time to time, I share when I back in the days in IPAC, we had those guiding principles. I don't know if you remember. And
mm,
I always say, and that's one that stayed with me quite a lot. Pain will happen, but suffering is not okay. So for
mm.
me, we all go through pain, especially like with stress with those corporations that we've both experienced. But it's like awareness, like we are helping our clients be more aware. So then we give them a system that they can use. And unfortunately, we can't erase stress, but we can
Mm.
manage it way better. So that's what comes to mind. So but you have something because you said, yeah, I don't have all the knowledge like a surgeon or a
Mm.
neurologist would have, but you have that powerful experience that has changed your life. So
Yeah.
you just spoke about stress. Now, my other question is, and because we want this content to be heard by professionals as well, has how has the definition of success and high performance changed for you? Because that's my game. Like I'm as a health coach, like a holistic coach. At the end of the day, for me, I want people to perform in their lives wherever they are, whether it's in the gym, at work, at home. Um, I want them to thrive. So, what is your definition of success now? With all
Mm.
that you know and that you've experienced and all the people that you've coached as well.
The first thing that springs to mind is, and it's not necessarily stress focused, but it's just being able to kind of be yourself and show up how you want to in the ways that you want to. But that is then linked to stress, because stress gets in the way of that. So it's our ability to let go of stuff, quite simply. And that may not sound that glamorous or sexy, but every day things happen and we're holding on to stuff. And if you think about every single cell in our body has the capacity to hold emotion.
Oh,
And that
totally.
and that emotion can be really positive and uplifting, and it can also be really negative and constrictive and damaging. And we function on 95% of our days in our subconscious, which is great because it means we don't have to think too much. But um, it also means lots of little things have kind of snuck in there that are stressing us all the time, that we don't probably appreciate kind of quite often, quite enough. But I think success is ability to realize that we can do absolutely anything if we put our minds to it. I think maybe if I look at my kind of the mantra that's kind of got me through the last 4 or 5 years, when I when I when my tumor had kind of continued to grow, kind of a year and a half after surgery, and kind of I started going through treatments, and just before that, I found Wim Hof and started to kind of found this crazy Dutch man who just says "breathe, motherfucker," and he was talking to me about how the mind and the body are amazing things. They're intricately connected. That through the breath, through the cold, through the mindset, which is the third pillar of the Wim Hof method, that we can achieve absolutely anything. And like, hence why placebos work. And that for me is real success when we can use that. And you don't necessarily have to have a critical illness and kind of be fighting and kind of looking to kind of heal yourself. It's more just if you can understand that you are a phenomenal human being and your body is, it's really easy to use. We just have to believe in the things that we're doing. The power of belief is everything. They're really complex inside. They're the most complex kind of computers. We will never design anything as complex and intricate and it's thousands and thousands of years worth of kind of evolution, and our bodies adapting and kind of, it's yeah, we've got these phenomenal machines. So when for me, going back to your question, success is your ability to do whatever you want. No, maybe that's not the right phrase. Your ability to whatever I truly believe we can do absolutely anything if we put our minds to it. And whether that's healing, or whether that's kind of getting the perfect job, or whether that's being a great parent, or whether that's just simply your neighbor keeps kind of pissing you off, and it's your ability to kind of let go of the things that he's doing and realize that actually there's more important things in life. It's your ability to kind of focus on, actually, I've got power. I have choice. Every day I've got so many choices and I've got so much power. And those two things together mean a less stressed life. And as you said, I'm in fully agreement. We need stress. It's our body's way of saying, I've detected some danger. It's a threat. I'm going to try and keep you safe. So if we didn't have any stress, we wouldn't have any fear. We wouldn't have any awareness. So we live in a world. It's not reality. The power of choice, I think. The power of, yeah.
Yeah. Now, for me, I think over time it has become the ability of connecting to oneself as well. To me, that's part of success, because if you can still be yourself, and I guess stress will affect you in a different way, and you'll be able to power through. Maybe you've touched on Wim Hof. What really drew you to him, basically?
Well, essentially, part of it is I was just at the lowest place in my life, like ever. So I'd had surgery, and then every 6 months I'd have a scan to kind of find out what's kind of going on. And I'd just kind of qualified IPEC, just kind of got my coaching qualification. I'd just opened the doors to Adapt and Flow, and then it was about 18 months after, it's the summer of 2021, have the scan, and they say, well, it's been growing, So I hit rock bottom, and for about 3 or 4 weeks, I was absolutely fucking petrified, thinking, I've just turned 40. Am I going to live to see 50? And I didn't know the answer. And the answer that I thought I knew was, could see my life. I could see myself kind of not getting there. And I think I just got so low, and I remember going over to, but I wanted to believe something. So I'd had all this kind of, had this kind of coach training, and I would always had this idea of the we could do anything we put our minds to. And you hear people talk about the power of the brain, and we only use 30%, but if we access all of it, then we can do phenomenal things. And there was two things that happened, because I think if I'd have found Wim Hof straight away, it wouldn't have worked. But I had to find the book first, Radical Remissions: Surviving Cancer Against the Odds, the 90 Factors That People Have in Common. So I found that book, and it's written by Kelly Turner. It's I think it's kind of 15 years old now, and it's grown into a website, and it's a radical remissions project now. And Kelly Turner, the doctor, she used to work in cancer wards, so she comes from lots of experience, and then she interviewed so many people and continues to kind of do so, and has a whole team around her now, and all these amazing stories. The stories that you don't get in the kind of mainstream media, of phenomenal radical remissions. And when I looked at the 9 key factors, they were all really accessible. So it was change your diet, which kind of made sense, kind of cut out processed and sugar, and try and kind of keep it as natural. If it grows in the ground, then that's the kind of stuff. So change your diet, use herbs and supplements. Those two were kind of physical in nature. The other 7 were mental, emotional, and spiritual. So it's going to create positive emotions, release negative emotions. And the lady who they give a kind of a case study on each one. There was a lady who could have created a comedy club, cancer kind of clinic, and people just go along and watch comedies and do stand up. And because they were laughing, their body was in rest and repair, and it helped them heal. And so create positive emotions, release suppressed emotions, take control of your health, have strong reasons to live, a purpose, trust your intuition, and deepen your spirituality. And I was like, hang on a minute, all of these are they're almost too simple, too good to be true. So you don't believe them. But then you start reading the case studies, and there was one guy with a brain tumor, and it was inoperable in the center of his head, really aggressive, and he just deepened his spirituality. He went down to South America, meditated for 2 years. Now that is a long time to go to South America to meditate. I appreciate, but it was just a proof of um, he of what our bodies can do, and actually that deep rest and kind of letting go of all the stress and just closing my eyes. I say that because I've got quite good at letting go of stress these days. But so that book started it, and then the year beforehand, during COVID, I'd read a book called by James Nestor called Breath: The New Science of a Lost Arts. And I remember them talking about all these different breathing techniques that come from the past, and they have the ability to kind of heal a body. And I remember this crazy Dutch man in there called Wim Hof, and I didn't really. I think I tried the breathing, but then didn't really get on with it, and then just kind of I didn't try very hard basically, and kind of gave up. And then when when I was at my desperation, the year next year, I'd found Radical Emissions. I was like, I need to read that book again, and I need to kind of find this Wim Hof guy because I just remembered him being some crazy guy who would just achieve anything. And remember, he's got 26 Guinness World Records. Some of them are around ice stunts, but a lot of them are around the power of the mind. He'll be hanging from a cliff just by one finger, just proving that everything is in the mind. If you can take control of your mind, then you can take control of everything. And this guy was kind of saying, you do the breath, you re-regulate your blood system, and if your biochemistry of your blood is kind of clear and become more alkalized again, then it sends all the red blood cells, it sends all the oxygen to you, it helps you kind of heal and repair, and you also reduce inflammation. And at the heart of all disease is inflammation. So by doing the breathing, doing the cold, taking control of your mind, you can take back control of your body and your nervous system, and you can deal with stress because stress is at the heart of everything. And I just heard this guy and found him at the right time. I remember I just downloaded the app, started practicing it, and by the end of the summer, when I started treatment, so 3 months later, excuse me, I felt absolutely phenomenal. So I'd gone from being down here thinking, "I've- it's May, June time, I've just turned 40, I've just got this new diagnosis or confirmation that it's growing, and I'm absolutely fucking petrified and I have no power, no control to by the end of the summer thinking this could be exactly what I need. And I believe in the power of the body and the mind. And this crazy man has just helped me find the way along with the Radical Emissions book. And I was like, shit, our bodies are amazing. So and just breathing, doing the breath work and doing the cold stuff, it just made me feel good. And I started feeling less stressed. And it helped me find my power of belief. And so I went through treatment feeling like, don't get me wrong, treatment was hard because chemotherapy and radiotherapy aren't kind of a walk in the park. But I think I had the tools to kind of deal with it, and I was re-regulating my body every day, doing the breath work, doing the cold, and pretty much haven't missed a day since. That was
Wow.
2021, and every morning I get up, I do 4 or 5 rounds of the Wim Hof breath work, I have a cold
Perfect.
shower or a cold plunge.
That's
Yeah.
kind of my question. I was going to ask, like, what is your daily practice now? Like, what does it look like? Like, take us through like a typical day for you.
Hmm.
You're
Um,
working from home, I suppose.
Work from home. I do a couple of days in the serviced office, and then I'm usually in town kind of one day a week. But typically, every day starts with waking up, and I used to sit in bed, but I've now started sitting on the floor to try and get better back kind of posture. And some people lie down. You can either lie down or sit up when you do your breath work, but I kind of make myself kind of comfy, sit up against the wall, and I'll do put some kind of calming kind of meditation. I just type into Apple kind of music, meditation music, put that on in the background, not too loud, and then just start doing 4 or 5 rounds of the Wim Hof breath work. So that's how every day starts. The only time I miss it is like in a few weeks' time. I've got a flight at 7 in the morning, so I'll have to be at the airport at 5. So I might just do one round then, or I might not, and I might just do it in the evening. But the thing I never miss is a cold shower because it doesn't take any extra time. I'm always going to have a shower. So I don't always have time to do the plunge, but I'll always have a cold shower every morning. So every morning, without fail, pretty much starts with 4 or 5 rounds of the breath work, which takes me 15, 20 minutes if you want to do, at the most, and then having a cold shower. And I set an intention at the beginning of the breath work, and just terms of like, I'll just say to myself, it might sound cheesy, but it makes me feel really good. I just say, I am love and I am powerful. And when I'm doing the breath work in the retention hold, because it's 30 or 40 deep breaths in, then you fully exhale, and then you hold your breath, and that's when you kind of go into this kind of great state of like deep relaxation whilst you're holding your breath, which might sound a bit counterintuitive, but it works. And when I'm in that kind of breath hold, I'm just there saying, I am love, I am power, I'm strong, I'm healing. And if there's any tingling, I'll send a bit up to kind of Terry the tumor to kind of, because he's still up there, but he keeps shrinking and getting smaller. So that's my routine every single day. And over the years, I guess I've added in a bit of fasting. I do more recently. Uh, yeah, that is my daily practice every day. Breath work, cold exposure, and focus of mind. Um,
Cool. Like that's great. I think the cold shower is that's an easy one. I mean, easy.
mm.
Question: what do you think is the greatest misconceptions about cold exposure?
Well, the first thing, I don't know whether it's a misconception, but the first thing, and it's a little bit like with fasting, whenever I say to someone you should do so, cold exposure is amazing for your body, your mind, resetting your nervous system and producing all these kind of kicking off a biological process that will reset your body and make it stronger, more resilient. And the first thing that everyone says, and I probably said it at some point, was, "Oh, I hate the cold. I can't deal with the cold." So, and actually, we can deal with the cold. It is literally just cold, and it's not for 3 hours. It's just for 2 minutes. Misconception is that cold exposure is dangerous. It is if you're going for an hour in an ice bath. Even then, your body could still handle it. But if you're just doing 2 minutes, it's not dangerous. If you have a heart condition, then gradual exposure is suggested. Have your warm shower, and maybe don't even go fully cold. But also talk to your doctor about it. But and if you're pregnant, then women shouldn't certain times of the month as well. It's choose when to stress your body and when to not. If you've done cold exposure for years, I know some Wim Hof instructors and people who've practiced the Wim Hof method for years or cold exposure for years who through pregnancy would still do cold exposure, but they'd adjust it slightly,
Mhm.
because actually your body will go, why have you stopped doing this thing that we love? Because it's got used to it. But taking up cold exposure if you're pregnant is probably not a good idea. It's a new thing to add to your body and new stress to your body and lots of adrenaline released, and your body won't be used to it. So the misconception is that it's dangerous, I think.
I feel like it's a bit like fasting. People have a lot of misconceptions, but
Mm,
certainly for women, there might be a time where it's smart maybe not to do it, especially for somebody who's new.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and that's related probably to the women's cycle. Probably,
Yes.
I'd say probably a bit after ovulation, probably that would make sense.
Hmm.
Um,
The Wim Hof sisters have just brought a book out fairly recently, Wim's Daughters, The Ice Women, and that kind of, I think, really identifies and kind of talks about this, so giving guidance as to kind of, when to stress your body and when to not, when with the cold, and Dr. Mindy Peltz, fasting expert, she talks about it as well in terms of when to,
oh yeah,
just,
totally. I read the book fast like a girl, like
oh, brilliant, yeah.
I have all the books. Cool. Okay. Now we've been talking about stress, obviously. So I'm just
Mm,
curious, and you kind of touch on it, but if you could give like a clear, concise explanation for somebody who's listening who feels, all the time stressed, wired, overwhelmed,
mm.
what actually is happening in their nervous system?
More often than not, and this happens to so many people, and I'm sure you and I will all have been stuck in this over the last few years. Our
Oh, yeah.
bodies get stuck in fight or flight, but because it's low level, we've almost our bodies just get conditioned and used to it. But it means we never get that deep rest. So it's not as obvious. We're showing up. We're a bit every day. We're probably a little bit tense, but because it's happened gradually, we don't realize. But essentially, we're in fight or flight, which means our body doesn't kind of get that rest and repair and rejuvenate and replenish itself. And when that happens, if we're just a little bit stressed on a daily basis, then some breath work could often help. Just simple, slowly in and then extended exhale out, and the kind of the longer exhale and kind of really kind of letting go of things. Just doing that for 3 or 4 minutes will help. But actually, when your kind of baseline of kind of stress has kind of changed and you're stuck in your kind of sympathetic nervous system, your stress response, then sometimes we need a real, James Nestor puts it really well in his book Breath. Sometimes you need to kind of turn stress on full blast to be able to kind of turn it off. It's a little bit like a computer. You need to kind of turn it off sometimes to turn it back on again. And then, oh, actually, everything's kind of working again. And that's where something like cold exposure really gives your system a good kick. It turns on stress full blast to be able to kind of realign it and bring it back into homeostasis. So that we can kind of take more control of your nervous system. Because ultimately, our nervous system is like a muscle, and we we have this autonomic nervous system, and it's called autonomic because the perception at the beginning was that years ago was that parasympathetic nervous system rest and repair and sympathetic nervous system stress response are just things that happen automatically to us. And our heartbeat goes up when we're in stress response and all these different kind of things to kind of prepare you to run away from that tiger. Now, the perception was that that's not in our control, and it's just our body perceives a threat and puts us in either one, depending on what is trying to kind of keep us safe and protect us.
Always in autopilot, and we forget that we are in control of those things.
The cold exposure really helped to kind of realign your nervous system. It's like a muscle. If we don't work it out, then when you get stressed, it's really hard to kind of get out of your stress response. Whereas if every day, or even if it's just 4 or 5 times a week, you're like exercise or you know, stimulating your kind of nervous system. But by doing things like the cold exposure and the Wim Hof breath work as well, pushes you between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So we're essentially giving our nervous system a workout. And then because it becomes our connectivity to it becomes stronger, when we do get stressed, as you say, the goal isn't to ever eliminate stress, it's just to spend less time there. So it means that when we do get stressed, we can use the power of our mind to kind of go, right, I recognize this, I'm aware, I'm stressed. Oh, I'm going to let it go. And then we can also use our breath as well to kind of help reduce it, kind of let go of it. But the cold training is strengthening your nervous system so that you can deal with stress. You're teaching your body how to kind of deal with stress and then let go of it. And I mean, it's a free tool. It's amazing, and it will. The initial response is, I hate the cold, but after I've had so many people come to me and say, okay, I'm going to take up the 20-day cold shower challenge. You have your normal shower, and then at the end, you just go cold for 15 seconds. Do that for 2 or 3 days, then move up to 30 seconds until you get to 2 minutes. And every single person that has tried it has come back to me and said, you know what? I love it. Yeah, and quite quite often the habit dies away and they forget about it, but not because they don't forget about it and stop doing it because they don't enjoy it. They forget about it just because life kind of gets in the way, and it's easy for the habits to slip by. But I've even had a friend of my dad's who's kind of in his mid 70s, mid to late 70s, kind of try it and kind of go, oh, right, I'm in. So, you can teach an old dog new tricks,
Yeah.
and it's yeah, phenomenal. But I've never had anyone not come back to me and say, I feel better. I feel less stressed and I feel more in control and I feel happier. Um, that doesn't mean to say you'll be happy every day, all the time, because that's not reality. It just means you're better at dealing with it and getting back to your happy place.
Yeah, 1000%. Something that comes to mind for me, at least about cold, like I go into the plunge in the gym, but I notice a lot of people, we anticipate the not so good sensation of being in the cold before even getting in the cold. So it's like
Mm,
it's like that fear of almost, if we could feel already that sensation of being freezing. So there's a lot of anticipation, but once you jump in the water, you come out, then I feel, at least for me, I'm a hyper person. I get a bit of a calm, like I'm in a zone where I'm more relaxed.
Mm,
So and eventually in my gym, sometimes the water is just cold, and I have soap on me, and I'm like, oh my God, I hate this thing. And boom, I go into the cold. I have no choice. So we give
mm,
ourselves too much choice not to do things
yeah.
that would be good for us sometimes.
I love the fact that you mentioned that because when I teach people to kind of deal with the cold, it's the first thing, that three-step process, set your mind before you go in, accept that it's going to be cold, but also accept that you're going to handle it. If you tell yourself, that phrase by Henry Ford, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. If you tell yourself you don't like the cold and you're not going to be able to handle it, funny enough, you're not going to like the cold and you're not going to be able to handle it. But if you tell yourself, okay, I acceptance, I get it, it's going to be cold, but actually it's just a sensation and I can handle it, then it will make a difference. Power of
Yeah.
belief is everything. Yeah. So set your intention before you go in. And you can do that with anything. You can, if you're about to have a meeting and you think it's about going to be stressful, set your intention. Just say, I'm going to go in. It's going to get stressful, but I can deal with it. And if you tell yourself that, it doesn't mean it, as you say, as we've kind of spoken, it doesn't mean it doesn't, the stress doesn't happen,
Mm.
but it means you have planted a seed and your body does listen to you when you tell it things. And it does make a difference. And it's simple, but it doesn't sound very powerful, does it? But when you start doing it, you realize, oh, I just need to give my body the instructions. You can handle this. Go and do it. If you believe it, hey presto. Yeah.
So if you could speak to high performing professionals who believe they can push through anything, what would you want them to understand about health in general? So I'm not talking about stress, I'm just talking about health.
Well, we go to sleep every night for a reason, because our bodies need to repair and rejuvenate. If you don't do that, then quite simply, that is a perfect sign of why we need to kind of rest at points and we can't push through and we can't kind of keep going. It's a great example I like to use, is if you were to kind of go to the gym and lift weights and you just keep lifting weights and you do it for like 8 hours straight, your muscles are going to kind of literally just disintegrate and start tearing and breaking. The process of resilience and stress resilience and kind of high performance happens when we allow that period of rest. I did run a workshop on resilience and I talked to people about saying you can do all the breath work and you can kind of do all the kind of exercise you like, but if you don't have that rest period, then your body doesn't recover and rejuvenate. And it's in that recovery process that you get stronger. So if you want to be a high performer, push yourselves, find your limits, try and learn just to kind of trust your body, but under your physiologically, we can't deal with stress, chronic stress. Our bodies will tell us you'll get a chronic disease, you'll get an illness, and before that, you'll probably just break down and be completely exhausted because our bodies are like a battery. We have to recharge them and look after them. Uh, and that as soon as we're stressed, we're in a different part of the brain. So we're not thinking creatively. We're just yes, no, black or white, fight or flight, right or wrong. Sometimes we need that, but quite often we don't. We need a bit more creativity of like, oh, well, that's an interesting point. Okay, how can I come up with a solution? We're not very solutions focused when we're in our fight or flight stress response. So if you're a high performer, physiologically, you might be Superman or Superwoman, but your body can't deal with constant stress. It's just not physiologically possible. You have to have that rest period, and you have to have some tools to allow yourself to release the stress as well. Um, and if you want to go one step further, you have to kind of teach your body how to deal with stress and fasting, exercise, breathwork, cold exposure are great tools for dealing with stress and teaching your body how to kind of get stronger through that process.
Yeah, I mean, this is super inspiring. The one thing that comes to mind when I hear you speak is I was just telling myself, like I worked in corporate for like 20 years, and the amount of time, energy, focus, all the investment we make, you know, for our careers, professional careers, is insane. And people put all their energy, everything into it. But why don't we do the same for our health?
Mm,
It's only when we have a scare sometimes that we realize,
yeah,
oh,
we
shoot,
forget
I need to
that
do this.
what health and I guess that's been one of my learning curves in terms of how to kind of market things. I call myself a health and wellbeing expert, or kind of coach, but I've started calling myself a stress and energy specialist, but also I say I'm a um, performance and well-being. Because actually, if you don't have health and well-being, you don't get high performance. You have to have that first one, otherwise you can't get there. You can maybe get there for a little bit, but it's not sustainable. You'll burn out, you'll crash, or you'll get fired because you're probably stressing everyone around you, and it's not creating an environment for kind of growth and creativity, and yeah. So we need to look after our health because it leads to high performance. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And be kind to yourself. It's not used enough in the business world. Be kind to yourself. And that doesn't mean to say, I think sometimes when we say be kind to ourselves, we replace the word lazy or something like that
Yeah.
in there. And we're like, actually, no, no, we just look at your diary. You've got a manic packed diary. So have an hour where you just do nothing or have a walk in nature, whatever it is, but something that's kind just for you, just because you've probably got kids, you've got loads of people reporting to you, or you're even if you're not that senior, you've got all these things kind of going on. Find just 1 hour a week just for you and see what difference it makes. And if that sounds like a bit too much at the moment, then just find 5 minutes a day. Do that one instead. 5 minutes a day just for you. And but it's got to be just for you. It's got to be nothing else to do with, oh, I might just do this in the meantime. No, 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 no.
Hmm.
5 minutes, just that time, just for you. So important.
Yeah. Success without health is fragile.
Mm.
Damon, thank you so much for sharing your story. Like you've been so open. Uh, and what I found super powerful about the conversation is that you kind of reminded us today, like especially high performing professionals, we always forget, our bodies are not machines. They are living systems that require recovery, attention, and respect. Too often,
Mm.
we only start listening when something breaks. Your
Mm.
experience is so powerful, and it's a reminder that resilience is not about pushing harder, it's about building the psychological and physiological capacity to navigate life and its challenges without destroying our health in the process. And if there is one message I hope listeners take away from today, is that success is meaningless if your health cannot sustain it. So we need to breathe, we need to recover, and we need to think about the nervous system regulation.
Mm.
So these are not luxury practices, these are fundamentals for long-term performance and well-being. Damon, thank you again for sharing your journey. It's so beautiful, and the lessons that came from such a profound experience. And to everybody listening or watching today, if that conversation resonates with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, your health is not something to fix later, it's something to protect now. So the next
Mm.
decade of your life can be lived with strength, clarity, and you just can be happy because you can't be happy when you're sick, right? So until next time, take care of your body, take care of your mind, and stay strong. And thank you so much.
Mm. Love it.